Alright, welcome back to Game 10 of Lucid's 2022 tournament, where we are playing Phlegra. It is turn 25. We finished research and construction, level 3, hit it on to 4. That's for gear for our Pretender, and eventually the Tyrants when they come out. Let's see, looks like Ulm has claimed another throne. The Inner Throne, I think they get some Blood Slaves, or maybe Astral Pearls off of that. I do think that's probably a good one for them. And then we do some site searching, which mostly doesn't work out, but 2 sites here, that's very nice. Yeah, this sounds like water gems mostly, maybe a fire gem as well. We seem to be getting a lot of water gems, which, like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we like gems, but earth gems are really more our preference. And then we catch quite a few battles, and we only have one of our own. So let's take a look. Looks like Raga is raiding out. They have gone AI. I'll have to double check. Let's see. This is just an unkitted mage who is diseased, so dying of old age. And yeah, it looks like they run into an actual force here, so... Oh, okay, no, maybe they're just bailing out of one of their forts, because the Raga mage retreated immediately, so hopefully they survived. And then we caught a battle between Vedheim and Utgard. Can't remember if I mentioned this. Okay, nice, these are some mercenaries. These are pretty awful mercenaries, though, so there's no province defense whatsoever, so I do think they'll come away with it. Vedheim has reached out for a non-aggression pact. I've not responded yet. We do want to focus on Utgard while their bless is down, but also I feel like, you know, we've discussed why Vedheim probably will be our next target anyway. And, you know, maybe Micklin to jump in against Vedheim. Well, we know they're already planning on jumping in against Vedheim, but perhaps we can replace Utgard as the partner in that. But, you know, we'll see. And this looks like a major fight. Let's see, this is, yeah, Raga. I was going to say it's Kalem, but of course it's not. Wait, hold on, it is Kalem. No, scratch that. It is Raga. They're just using a lot of their Kalian troops. So yeah, Raga's one of those ones. I feel like you see a lot fewer Kalians if you go heat with Raga. And this looks like a breakout potentially. Yeah, that was in Raga. So Atlantis had it locked down with just a scout. You know, they're doing the dance. So neither of them, you know, have wanted to engage in a major battle just yet. So we'll try to keep an eye on that. And then Utgard is clearing out. I think they got hit with, I think everybody got hit with a number of Vinemen. Okay, this is just, yeah, this is the Throne of Gaia, just some Earth Elementals and Earth Gnomes. Even without the Bless, like this many Gamherdings is going to have no problem with this. So I doubt they took, yeah, no losses. It's, you know, quite a bit of stuff. And then we catch up. It looks like Gath and Marignon are fighting. We caught a battle between them earlier, but, you know, I wasn't sure if, you know, they were just bumping into each other. But this does look like, you know, they are fighting now. So just a mundane raiding force, I think. No, Gath using some of their human sacreds, although... Doesn't look like they have anyone here to bless them, so either something has gone wrong, or they, you know, aren't carrying much of a bless. I think Gath definitely can carry a bless, since they have both the human sacreds and the giant sacreds. But yeah, I mean, I know that the Hinnom line in general, which is what Gath is the late age continuation, they tend to have pretty good mages, so I think Scales is viable on most of the other nations. I'm less familiar with late age. Anyway, this is a lot of stuff, more than enough stuff, of course, to deal with one province defense. So we'll try to keep an eye on that, but that's not too relevant for us, other than the fact that if those two are fighting quite a bit, then neither of them are really going to be in a position to attack Utgard. And Utgard might get away with, you know, not too many losses here from the loss of their bless, because Atlantis is the other person that really has a large border, and it looks like Atlantis is still somewhat busy with Raga, so, you know, it's just going to be me and Vedheim at the moment. And obviously, we have not committed to anything just yet. Utgard did reach out saying that, you know, we could have some provinces of theirs, but I didn't respond, and I did not. Let's see, it looks like this is a skeleton, yeah, a death mage throne. So probably just skeletons, maybe some shadow blasts. We probably will lose some Mouflon, but yeah, this is not too much of a problem. But yeah, I didn't bother responding. It's kind of interesting. I mean, yeah, Utgard knew that they were in trouble, right? So they pretty much just offered provinces that, like, we were likely to be able to take anyway, but I'm really not sure what to make of that, because they don't really strike me as the player that would be interested in, I mean, they just finished threatening me, right, about how 1v1 would be bad for us. So it's like, okay, we take those provinces in the short term and then their bless comes back online. Like, I don't think that they would then be like, oh, well, we offered them those provinces, so they can keep them. So it's kind of like, well, you know, I'll attack what I attack, and they'll hold what they hold. So yeah, I didn't really feel the need. Yeah, and of course our fire elementals just being a waste of gems. You know, there was no elementals. We didn't scout this throne, so we didn't know what sort of mages were here. So there could have been like some air elementals, in which case, you know, they're only lesser fire elementals because I failed to update the script. But even lesser fire elementals would have helped quite a bit against air elementals. So like I said, it was really more of a safety valve. We knew that those fire elementals weren't likely to do much, and you know, that's just because our whole army was forward deployed, because generally with the thrones it seems like you want to just get in and mess with the mages as quickly as possible, and they had not actually that many crossbowmen. The scout report made it look like maybe they had some more, but you know, the sooner you can get back and clean up the crossbowmen, the better. Still, this works out for us. Other than wasting the gems, we only lose, you know, 4 Mouflon. An absolutely giant army here for us. Quite a few Mouflon. Maybe want to split some of this. Definitely want to split out a few of the Mouflon, I think, as raiders. But yeah, we also need to work on getting a second army, because if we fight against Utgard, they can attack us in 2 different directions. Not sure if we're going to attack immediately. We do want to start a fortification on this province. So, you know, in some ways we want to leave some stuff to hang out to defend that. But also we really want to start moving against Utgard while their bless is down. Though, like I said, I think the Gam herdings are going to be tough to catch. You know, particularly our movement is quite slow, so it's going to be easy for Utgard to avoid. And unless we can like crack a fort and open it up and get inside before the bless comes back online, like, yeah, we're not actually going to be able to kill that many Gam herdings. So yeah, like I said, the loss of their pretender might not be as catastrophic as it first seemed. It really depends on how fast Vedheim and myself can move. And then I think this is legit Calum, just clearing out some independence. I feel like that's an odd choice, though. It is Calum clearing out some independence. And actually, now that I remember this, these independents were on top of one of their last forts that isn't being sieged by a player. So that makes a lot more sense, because it's kind of like they're definitely on the back foot. So it's like, is it really time to, you know, go clear out some independence? But if they're sitting on top of your fort, you kind of have to, regardless of the situation. So that works out for them pretty well. You know, they lose a little bit of chaff, but that's fine. Then we have some unexpected events. I'm sure these will be great. Hey, a fertility festival. That is actually nice. And then let's see. Yeah, Burning Mountain is rumbling. So we get more unrest in our capital. I'm not even sure. Like, yeah, I started patrolling in the capital. Like, probably we should just leave some troops there and like a commander to patrol down all the unrest we're going to keep getting. I think once the mountain blows up, then we get fewer of these unrest events. So in some ways, things will get better. But since a bunch of people die, we're going to lose a bunch of income, so in that sense it gets worse. But at least for the moment, it's probably worth patrolling, because we're getting like very little income out of our capital right now, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, there is a Cult of Gaia. That is unfortunate. We will have to try to remove that, either with some patrolling or increasing our dominion there. Let's see, some people left, but we gained some dominion, so that's okay, I suppose. The Yellow Mold, of course, a classic. We can kiss province defense in this place goodbye. And then let's see, yeah, some heavy rains. This isn't too bad as Misfortune 3 goes, and Throne of Gaia forces are now slumbering. We actually didn't really get hit by the Throne of Gaia, which is nice, though it looks like a few other people did. I'm assuming that's what these attacks are. Yep, this looks like Throne of Gaia. But Atlantis, let's see, yeah, I don't even think this is a province defense. This looks like, for whatever reason, this is probably inside of Raga's territory. Yeah, because this is actually, there's no province defense here whatsoever. This is just an army. So it works out for them more or less. I don't think these Atlantean infantry are bog standard, pretty easy to replace. And then Utgard gets attacked, I'm guessing probably also. Yeah, Feynman. Actually, this might be different. I'm not sure if these guys count as forces of Gaia, because I think normally it's the Earth Gnomes. Ouch. So Woodsman province. Woodsman PD is pretty bad. You know, Vine Ogre is not great, but I think they're actually going to come away with it in this case, because I don't think they're going to be able to put these guys to sleep, which is the main benefit of those Woodsmen. Although I guess, you know, they have the short bows, but yeah, it doesn't work out for Utgard. Then we finish a palisade. I believe this is on top of not the throne that we just took, but the previous one. So we are happy about that. And we managed to cure, our Archon, who randomed in Earth 3. I was kind of sad that, he was going to die from a disease, but I remembered that, hey, the witches, they can heal diseases, so that's kind of a nice find for us. It does seem like Phlegra has, quite a bit of old age and disease problems, so something to note if you ever play them. And I will catch you guys after the cut. All right, this is the situation and what we're doing about it. Let's see what mistakes we can spot this turn. So we're going to attack Utgard. I don't believe this was one of the provinces that they offered. So obviously that will indicate to them that I'm not really particularly interested in a settlement. We've discussed, I don't really think that there's opportunity, like if I don't agree to a non-aggression pact, I don't really think that we'll have like a long-term settlement, even if I were to take the provinces that they offered. And also I think we're going to have the opportunity for a decent amount of gains into Utgard's territory. Obviously, they're fairly large, but, people are going to be pretty worried about them. Now, it is going to be an awkward war for us in some ways, because we have a weird border with them, right? We essentially have two disconnected borders. So, while we actually will have a decent number of province connections with them, especially as Vedheim pushes in, at the same time. I'm assuming that that's what's going to happen. From what I've discussed with Vedheim, they're also going to focus on Utgard. So as both of us push in, our borders will become smaller, essentially, with Utgard. And so this definitely is very much like a diagonal war, which a lot of people don't really recommend. But at the same time, it's kind of an advantageous time to start this conflict. And then we're planning on taking this territory, the Jawalban territory, from Vedheim, which will make those borders a lot less weird. So, still haven't responded to Vedheim. Probably, I'm not really sure how I'm going to phrase this. I don't really want to say let's not fight now, but I'm definitely going to take the Jawalban territory from you later. But I am going to have to decline the non-aggression pact, which will probably indicate to them that, we're interested in fighting, and we've discussed why that is. A lot of it's just because we already have non-aggression pacts with our other neighbors. And I do think there'll be opportunity here, especially if Vedheim gets attacked by Miklin next, which is what we've heard through the grapevine is going to be happening. But things shift all the time, and Miklin may have different ideas at this point. So we'll see. Again, not really looking to fight Vedheim in the short term. I do think dealing with Utgard is going to be important. That said, we're not making a ton of attacks. This turn, a good chunk of our army is hanging out and, just claiming the throne. We're starting a palisade here on top of the throne, which is where a good chunk of our money is going. We are sending out another raiding group of Mouflon. These groups are maybe a bit on the big side. Probably should be using half this number, really. Because these are, way too strong to run over minimal PD, which is kind of what I'm expecting. But if they do bump into a large stack of Gamherdings, even unblessed, I don't think the Mouflon are going to do great. So we'll see unblessed. But I also think that it's going to be somewhat difficult. We'll see how much Utgard really even defends while their bless is down. So, in some ways we kind of do want to draw those Gamherdings out. And, these kind of provide some juicy groups for them to try to destroy. So, we'll see how this goes. They're not too expensive for us to replace, so it's not the end of the world. We also don't have a ton of raiding room up here in the north, right? This is Utgard's capital, and, we'll see. We may send this army against the capital. It definitely isn't going to be strong enough to take on those sacreds with their bless. We're going to have to reinforce a lot with our mages, because again, I'm not expecting to be able to complete this war before Utgard brings their bless back online. And so I think in order to be able to defeat that, we are going to need to complete our research. We're finishing off Construction 4 because we're starting to close in. In 5 more turns, in theory, we could have the Tyrants online. It's a random chance, but probably by turn 35, we will have the Tyrants online, so 5 to 10 turns. And we will want construction research for them. Level 6 would be ideal, but I do think that going up to Alt 5 is definitely going to be required because that's Incinerate. And then if we can just put together a relatively large communion, Incinerate is not a particularly fatiguing spell. So, if we have a good number of communion masters and a good number of communion slaves behind just a bunch of chaff, I think we're going to be able to get off a lot of incinerates, and I think that's going to deal a lot of damage, especially since in some ways Blood Bond, I wouldn't say that it helps us, because I think Gamherdings have enough health that they can probably tank an incinerate cast, but like the second incinerate cast, normally there would probably be some over damage there, and that's actually going to get spread out to all the sacreds. So really trying to bank on their lack of fire resistance. We'll see how that goes. In terms of the chaff, I mean, obviously, we have our crossbowmen, but was also thinking that, we should be able to make some bugs here. We don't want to like necessarily waste these witches, but at the same time, like we don't need that many of them. So we could bring them up for some swarm casting because, it takes giants a long time to kill all the bugs. And then also, let's see, we're planning on heading up Alteration. We're not going to make it to Will of the Fates. Yeah, but Battle Fortune is at level 6, and we want to hit level 6 anyway for Soul Vortex. Battle Fortune is just, a relatively wide area of effect. Well, okay, it's a decent area of effect, but it should be able to cover most of a swarm casting, right? Because the bugs are size 1, so they pack in pretty nicely. And this is, it gives units luck, so a bunch of lucky bugs. It's kind of like the worst case scenario for giants in terms of, taking a lot of time to kill them all. So, the partially formed plan at the moment is to spam out, some bugs, make them lucky. We'll be shooting our crossbow bolts, which will hopefully be on fire. And then we'll have a decent sized communion that's just spamming incinerate, and I think that'll do the trick. Now this is going to be very expensive in terms of mage turns, and we probably won't be able to field 2 such armies. So we're going to need to think about, do we make our main attack in the north or in the south? There's kind of arguments in both directions. In the south here it seems like where maybe most of the Gamherdings are. But then in the north, we're a bit closer to the source of the Gamherdings, which is the capital. So we'll see, right? We really only have 1 army right now here, but we're starting to build up enough units that, we could put together a second army in the south, and that's, kind of what most of this movement is about. We're just sort of trying to shift everything forward to this throne fort. In terms of our recruitment, we are finishing off one of the throne mages. I don't know how many of these we're going to want, but Air 2 is pretty useful, so we're at least going to recruit a couple of them before we switch over to our national mages. And I don't know, we'll see. Depending on how much infrastructure we put up, maybe we'll never switch. We still do want a fort here, so that's on the agenda, but first we want to get this fort up and running and upgraded, and this fort upgraded, so it's going to take a second. Speaking of, let's see, we are recruiting another communion slave here because we're a little light in terms of the communion slaves. Right, that is the other problem with this plan is once we fight that battle where we're spamming out a bunch of incinerate, like we're going to burn out, whatever communion we bring in all likelihood. So, trying to get some communion slaves for that. And then we switched over to oppressors on the other side here. We sort of just trying to balance it, right? We have more communion slaves in this fort, so time to get some oppressors. In the capital, we are getting another oppressor archon. Pretty soon, we're going to be focused on the tyrants. We may just want to start saving money because the tyrants, if I recall correctly, are like 600 gold apiece. So like each one of them is a palisade, which is pretty tough to support. Especially since, it's kind of good in the sense that our capital is already getting hammered by, unrest, and we're not making any money out of it. Because once the mountain explodes, a bunch more population is going to die, and this is probably more or less what our capital income is going to look like for the rest of the game. Maybe a little higher. I don't know. It's definitely not good. This may also explain why a lot of people have offered me non-aggression packs, and I was really thinking that people were going to come after me pretty early, simply because Phlegra has kind of a reputation as not that strong of a nation. So I was figuring that people would think oh, okay, that should be a relatively easy snack. But I'm not actually sure if Phlegra explodes, right? If Phlegra were to be wiped out and their capital taken by someone else, is there still an explosion that kills all the population? Because if so, Phlegra is kind of an unappealing place to take, and especially if you don't take it really fast, right? Like certainly if Phlegra remains in my hands, up to like about turn 30, turn 35, our capital is a lot less valuable than probably almost anyone else's on the map right now. So that may help explain, why people just haven't, it's like, okay, Phlegra is not that danger of a nation in the late game, but then also, it's almost like a pop kill nation. I mean, not really, because, it's not even close, because we don't kill the rest of our lands, but like it is a pretty big downside to be taking over such a wrecked capital. So that might be why people have been attacking less, or who knows? Maybe they have other. There's lots of reasons, but I'm kind of curious that it's like no one's really come after us, and maybe because our land is not really going to be that valuable. We're mostly not recruiting troops this turn. We are managing to push out a few Mouflon in the capital, and then I think we're, just a few crossbowmen here out of this palisade. But otherwise, we don't really have the money to be recruiting troops because, all the unrest as discussed, but also a lot of it is going into this palisade. And I think that more or less covers turn 25.